Hello today, my dear players. It's lovely to have you all here for today's video. So today I thought I would talk about a more personal story of a a campaign that I played in which we had a bit of a problem player. And it was annoying. There's other problem situations that have come up with different campaigns, but this one stuck out to me as one that got to me pretty badly. But to be clear, the person in question is not a bad person. Not at all, in fact. He's a fairly pleasant human being. The problem was more how they acted as a player with their character, as opposed to how they were as a person. So, the setup in this campaign was that all of us wanted to go find all of our characters wanted to go find some type of ancient library for our own different reasons. And so I made a character that was an arcane trickster rogue who was a magic nerd. He just nerded out about magic all the time. And so that's why he wanted to go find the library to see if it had anything about magic. And the problem player's character was a sorcerer, and he had this thing where, for one, a lot of their motivations were somewhat secretive, but the player admitted that the character was made to be a bit of a neutral evil kind of character that was selfish, but not to the point of being a problem, what he claimed at the time. And it's hard to know where to start exactly. I guess I should start with the little stuff. Probably be a good place to start. A lot of the little stuff that he did was that since my arcane trickster was supposed to be a magic nerd, I had him have expertise in arcana, and he had a really high intelligence. In fact, it was his highest stat. So, if there was a roll about arcana, I always got it. Which seemed to create these weird problems where he wanted to create this rivalry with my character about magic knowledge. And since sorcerers are charisma based and he didn't have access to expertise with the way he built his character, he would always kind of lose that rivalry in the way he wanted to wage it. And it was just really weird in that he kind of wanted to both be the face of the party while at the same time be the person about magic as well, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But any time my character was knowledgeable about magic, he wanted to have his character challenge my character on it. Which again isn't the worst thing, but it would clog up so much of the session time and would make things so much slower of him constantly challenging opinions, trying to have an argument, trying to figure something out, and it was exhausting. Another thing, and that was in character, but there was another thing that he as a player would do, is that anytime I attempted to do a weird thing with magic, he always interrupted the DM creating a ruling for it to give his own opinion on how it should be ruled. And it's not like a horrible thing to give your own take on rulings as a player, but it is a bad thing to always interrupt the DM to do it. And it did make, and that actually did make the DM upset. It did actually make him upset, which he admitted to me later on, which, in that a lot of the things I was trying to do, he wanted to let me do because they were cool and interesting and weren't like super contradictory to the rules, only like just maybe slightly off because they were weird applications of certain spells. But because of him constantly interrupting him, the DM just didn't want to argue with him over it. And so that's two things there, where we have him acting like as a player, him constantly making these rules, and he also, there's a bit of hypocrisy there, because he would want to do weird things with his own magic, but then always get frustrated with me trying to do weird things with magic, and it was just an annoying dynamic, and it felt like we couldn't talk to him about those little things, mostly because anytime it was brought up, it was like, oh, that's him as a character. Oh, that's just the rules. And we couldn't really get past that. He wouldn't really engage with any of the talking past those things. It was really aggravating. But that's the little stuff. That stuff alone wouldn't have been that bad. The next step is that he had this weird thing, and I can't tell if this was a player attitude or a character attitude, or maybe both, but he always wanted to inject his character into other character moments, always, at all times. And it's something I feel bad about nitpicking him about, because I can understand, like, if you don't know when to read, when's like a good time to inject your character and when's not, that I can understand that you might read it as like any time. But when every time someone's having this kind of personal character moment that's important, and like they're trying to do some important role play and trying to develop this problem, you have someone just interject in the middle, it can get a little frustrating. Especially because it's very clear that the DM will set up some of these moments to be like, yeah, your character is having this moment. How do they respond to it? What are their feelings in this like couple minutes given to the character? Like how are they feeling in these couple minutes assigned to you? And he would just have to also make it about him in some manner. It was very, very annoying, especially one time. Is that there's this other character, one of the other characters in the campaign had this idea of they wanted to one day... Okay, sorry, I might end up repeating myself because I got interrupted. But there was one character who had this goal of one day becoming a god. A grandiose goal, but, you know, it was set up well, and we were all good with their character having that motivation, and it was interesting. And at one point in one session, she had this moment where she got to see her future. And what she saw was a future where she became an evil god, where she became an angry, destructive force that only harmed people. And she hated that concept of herself. She hated this idea of her being like an evil god. She hated the idea, but she'd never thought about the possibility of her becoming an evil god. And then my character, while she's having this, like, right as she hits like a quiet moment of thinking about it, I had my character interject, because it seemed like a nice moment where maybe my character could cheer hers up. And the way my character attempted to do that was through logic, where he made the proposition that the reason why you may become an evil god is because you maybe don't understand all the logical consequences of just becoming a god without thinking about it too much, or without designating a particular purpose for when you're a god, and things like that, like running through all these logical steps, him being the smart one. And it ended up being a really nice moment between my character and hers, where that character learned from mine and developed their friendship a bit, especially because they had actually, up until that point, they had actually been on bad terms, because my character actively and audibly refused to engage with her concepts of divinity, and made like a certain challenge to her of, it doesn't matter if you're a god or if you become a god or not, it matters whether you're going to be worthy of worship or not. That's kind of his point, and this caused a lot of friction between them up until this point. So this was like a really nice step in their character arcs relating to each other of actually becoming friends. And then problem player, he interjects his character in the middle of that moment, in the middle of that sweet moment, and essentially attempts to do exactly what my character just did. And it just kind of soured the moment a bit. Or, like, not just a bit, it soured it a lot, actually. Where it just kind of felt really cheap. Like, what was, like, a really good RP moment, or a really good moment between two characters that previously didn't like each other, is now kind of soured by this person trying to make it about them, as if their character has just as much importance in this moment as these two do, but they don't. And it just sucks. Like that player who played that character wanted to be a god. She actually told me outside of the game how much it bothered her. And it's actually both of us coming forward together later on that allowed us to address the problem with the problem player. But again, we are still in relatively minor territory. These are nitpicks. Then we're getting into bigger things, like a problem that happened a lot, is that he would often make campaign, like party or campaign level changing decisions by himself. Even though and it really was upsetting in the times in which, like, it really clashed. A good example, the first time it happened, was that we all showed up in an elven city. It was the first time we've been in a city in the entire campaign. First time we've been in like a normal city. And so what we wanted to do was that we wanted to, like, explore the city a bit, get resources, buy stuff, visit shops, meet NPCs, and maybe do a little bit of a particular character. Not maybe, like, we were definitely going to focus on that character's arc in this city, because that character was from this city. But because she had this other character had this whole other thing, our fighter had this whole thing where she was from this city, and she's wanted as a fugitive in the city because of, like, family drama and all kinds of stuff like that. So she has to be kept invisible or in disguise. And what ends up happening is that we're dropped in a tavern. It's like the first place we get to go before we do anything in the city. And then immediately, the sorcerer the problem player ends up having this concept of wanting to leave the city as quickly as possible, just to go do other things. The rest of us wants to leave the city as quickly as possible and not really deal with any of the troubles in the city. While the rest of us, all the rest of us, have this concept of wanting to be in the city, wanting to do side quests, wanting to help people. And because he's neutral evil, he doesn't want to help people, and will do, and seemingly was willing to say or do anything to try and get us to not do that, because it's a waste of time, to the point where, in a bit of frustration, the character, I don't think it was player frustration, I think it was character frustration, could have been both, but I think it was character frustration, the character just essentially announced the fighter's identity in the middle of the fucking tavern. And of course, people know who she is. And so then immediately once that's been announced and he essentially uses magic to expose her a bit, it causes the guards to come and we have to do this whole thing. And what was gonna be like possibly several sessions of us having fun in the city and doing side quests become this arc of us having to escape the city that lasts maybe like 2 sessions. And it was like this super, super sour note where he was super pleased. He was super pleased with the situation and super happy and thought everything was hunky-dory. But the rest of us were genuinely frustrated. The first time we get to go to normal city, the first time we get to have a chance to flex our legs and do some sandbox gameplay, and to explore this fighter's character arc, we have to stop all of this to escape the city now, because we can't afford to be here anymore. We can't. We have to leave. We have to escape. So we can't do shopping. We can't do anything. And it's so fucking frustrating. And we should have addressed it with him right there. We didn't. But yeah. And then the next thing we did, this is what really made me explode. This is what really the biggest one. So in the process of escaping, we have to do this whole thing. The only way to escape the city without being caught by the guards is to escape this underground tunnel. And when we go through the underground tunnel, we discover that there's mind flayers in the tunnel that we have to kill. In addition to this, there is a villain character down in the tunnel as well, whom we've encountered before. And the villain offers a deal. And one of the quirks of the villain is that he never goes back with the deal. So he offers a deal of he'll help us kill the mind flayers as long as he gets to have this book that the mind flayers have. And due to the fact that we can't really afford to deal with both him and the mind flayers should we reject the deal, we chose to accept it and have clear up the mind flayers. And what ends up happening is that when we clear out all the mind flayers and he goes to get the book, and we're about to do looting, we haven't looted yet, we haven't got anything out of the tunnel, and we'll leave. What our dear sorcerer does is that in the middle of the villain going to get the book, he misty steps to the book, places the book in his bag of holding, and then, due to the fact that the book is incredibly strange magic, which is heavily implied throughout the entire talking with the villain, and the entire process of us helping him get the book and us killing mind flayers, that there's something weird with the book, possibly something to do with extra-dimensional shit. So when he places the possibly extra-dimensional book into the bag of holding, it causes a whole astral plane open, teleporting us all forcibly to the astral plane. Thus, none of us get to loot anything. None of us get to continue on with the plan we were going to do. We don't get to do any of the things that we all wanted to do, because he chose to do that. There's another aspect of this that greatly infuriates me, is that given the positioning of the party at the time he did this, should the book not have done created an astral plane, and instead he just got to have the book in his bag holding and he could mostly step away, what that would have meant is that we now have a villain who has not used up much of his resources at all for the fight with the Mind Flayers, and us, as we're all weak from a big fight with the Mind Flayers, and he would have been pissed off because we betrayed the deal. So what that would have meant is that if the astral plane bullshit hadn't happened, we would have easily been TPK'd because of his fucking decision. And frankly, the only reason why the villain didn't kill us when we all got to the astral plane was out of the DM contrivance. Literally, the DM just felt so bad about the situation that player forced upon us that he just had the villain tell himself instead of trying to kill us, even though he would otherwise 100% worth. And it just infuriated me to no end. But yeah, that's the problem player. The way it resolved is that after that we ended up having to talk with the DM about it. DM also felt it was a problem, thought it was just him, and then we talked to the player, and he then stopped doing things for a bit. He ended up, from what I heard, in sessions where I was not around, like if I had to not be there for some reason, I heard from some of the other players that he would attempt to act like that again when I wasn't there, which is depressing, and that game is just falling apart.
Sweet!
Yeah. That's the story. I hope all of you enjoyed hearing me talk about it, and if y'all have any problem player stories, please share them. I'd like to hear. Or if you guys would like to see me cover some other problem player stories, maybe other people's stories, feel free to let me know. And until then, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll talk to y'all next time.